أما السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي فقد تحدث في كلمته بعد ترحيبه بالرئيس الروسي عن المنفعة، مبدأ المنفعة المتبادلة والمشتركة بين كافة الأطراف في هذا المنتدى وفي هذه القمة. أيضا أكد على أنه ينظر لروسيا بأنها شريك في التنمية الإفريقية، خاصة في مشروعات الطاقة وربط الطرق.
الذي عمره 60 عاما. أرحب بكل المشاركين الذين قدموا من الدول الأفريقية. نحن نرى في تعاونكم هو تأكيد على الصداقة والتعاون المشترك بين روسيا والدول الأفريقية في تطوير العلاقات بشكل عميق، وفي هذا مهتمة روسيا
And we assured Russia with African countries from a very long time, since it was under occupation and colonization. And ever since it started independence and building its free economy, this supports Russia until the day to help and allows it to help the problems, the economic and social issues that are related to African countries and Russia. I would like to clarify that to building this relationship, there should be many discussions, very important discussions and negotiations to build trust. And in this hall, presidents gather of African countries, different African countries, and I would like to invite I give the floor to Amani Abu Zaid, the President of the African Union, to developing electrical power, and Maxim Orizio, the Minister of Economic Development in Russia. هل تودينا البدء سرجنينا؟
قسم التنمية في أفريقيا.
The head of the developmental section in Africa and the Minister of Natural Resources in the Russian Federation, Durik Salama, the head of the executive board of the African Bank for Exportation and Importation, and Giris Spiritnov, the general director of the Russian company for exportation. And the chair of the company of Naspers Putin Kamenka, and at last Andriy Kosin, the director of the Bank of Vitebia, the commercial bank for importation and exportation, the Russian Bank for Importation and Exportation. Ladies and gentlemen, participators in our meeting today, we start this discussion And as I said, our goal is very big and very deep, which is discussing certain questions that comes in the next coming years to develop our relationship between Russia and Africa. The first question is, why does Russia hold this conference or forum now at this time? And what is the benefit for Russia from the cooperation between Africa and Russia? And the second question, the second question is, how can we develop the economic relationships between Africa and Russia that we have written with the United Nations? The fourth question is, what are the projects, the specific projects that we see between Russia and Africa and that we can execute in the few coming years? And the means of trade dealings between Russia and Africa, and what are the obstacles that face developing this relationship and resolving it on this very high level. At the beginning, I give the word to the person responsible for developing the relations between Russia and Africa. You represent the African Union, and you know very well the paper submitted 2063. Can you tell me how Russia can activate this paper, and why is this importance given from African countries to Russia? After many experiments between Africa and the Russian Federation, why does our country, Russia, at the center of the African nations' importance, despite our good relations with our partners in China and India, which is a very good relationship.
Avant de commencer, je vous permettez tout d'abord de remercier à la fois Monsieur le Président Poutine, le Président de la République fédérale de la Russie, le Président Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Président en exercice de l'Union africaine, le Président de la République arabe d'Égypte, pour avoir convoqué ce forum fort important. La ville de Sochi en fait nous présente aussi une occasion d'être tous ici là, juste à juger par le parterre extrêmement riche de chefs d'État et aussi de dignitaires des institutions importantes ici en Russie. L'Afrique attend beaucoup de ce forum économique. En effet, dans le contexte du sommet Russie-Afrique, ce forum se positionne comme une plateforme qui offre à l'Afrique l'opportunité de mettre à la disposition des personnes d'affaires russes des informations de première main sur les énormes potentialités.
إذن مشاهدينا الكرام، نتابع معكم الآن فعاليات الجلسة الأولى في هذا المنتدى الأول من نوعه بين روسيا وبين القارة الإفريقية. يشارك 9 متحدثين أو 8 متحدثين بالإضافة إلى مديرة هذه الجلسة. من الجانب الروسي مديرة قسم التنمية في أفريقيا ووزيرة الموارد الطبيعية لروسيا ورئيس البنك الأفريقي للاستيراد والتصدير وأيضا المدير العام الخاص بشركة ناسبيا ومديرة بنك التجارة للاستيراد والتصدير الروسي. تتحدث الآن السيدة أماني أبو زيد رئيسة الاتحاد الإفريقي لتنمية الطاقة، وقد سألتها مديرة هذه الجلسة مجموعة من
There are a number of questions. One of them is, why does Russia hold this conference now? And also, why and how the African continent looks at and views the means of trade dealings with Russia. Everyone puts it as a priority for many economic reformations and industrial reformations. That's why we have to forge all the necessary relations and opportunities to put this as the priority. That's why we have also to pay attention to the infrastructure and economic reformations from one side, and we should also from the other side attract all the investment opportunities and put at the priority for partnership. And there is very strong partnership between Egypt and Russia, and the forum Russia-Africa, in this forum they are searching for partners. They are searching for principal partners in relation to technology, education and infrastructure, and also in relation to energy and means of transportation and industrialization and transforming metals and industries. That's why we can and we are capable of supporting our partnership in relation to many common interests and moving forward. And we don't have to forget that the African Union launched last year and also this year the economic plan that is the most successful and most effective until today. Our continent is the one who provides opportunities, but it also provides many economic reformations with Russia, and Russia does the same, and Russia should also provide the fund economic support and technological support. Thank you very much. I have a question for Mr. Maxim Saris, the Minister of Economy in Russia. Our economic relationship do you think it have changed today? What are the important aspects of cooperation between Russia and Africa from your point of view on the short term and on the long term? And is the relationship with Africa going to help with developing our national projects? Thank you very much. And I welcome you in Sochi, in Russia. It's true, there have been a long history of relationship between Russia and Africa. In the last 5 years in our relationship with Africa, there was some kind of development between all the relations between our country and Africa. Now our relationship is not at the desired level between Africa and Russia. Now there are two kinds of of standards between Russia in the last 15 or 10 years. The experiences have accumulated in Africa, especially digitally. Unlike the development of industries, of industries related to agriculture. And the second topic is that Africa, as you have said, now Africa is changing. Technological development and inserting digital technology. And these aspects for us are very important, and it helps us to solve the problems in relation to all countries separately. We are speaking of health, of education, of another level of standards of living, on raising the digital technology in each country separately. In this summit, we have to discuss very specifically and not related to certain commodities or certain projects. We will discuss any topic that lifts the economic and social level of African countries, and this is what we want to do. Mr. Minister, I'm sorry. In the first circle of discussion, I request that each one of you would speak for 5 minutes, and then we will return to everybody else once again. But in the first part, we want you to stick to just 5 minutes of talk. I request a word from Ms. Tex. We met last year, and back in time we went through a cooperation protocol. I think that was the first kind of cooperation, but it won't be the last for sure. We want to be on this level with all the institutions and companies in Africa. Mrs. Tax, you represent here one of the most important institutions and agencies that are based on developing relations between us. How do you see the development of relations and establishing free industrial zones, and how these zones will contribute to lifting the levels of relations between Africa and Russia?
Excellencies present here. Indeed, I represent SADC, but also the other regional economic communities in that event. Let me also recognize the Troika leadership.
I would like to say that Troika is considered. And as for the question, I will try to answer 3 elements. The first thing is related to the expectations that I see in the view of the African Union in the framework of Agenda of 2023, and in this framework I see that this operation will achieve African integration in the continent of Africa. But the second part was related to
بالنسبة للإجابة عن هذا السؤال بالتأكيد تستمر أفريقيا في التعاون مع روسيا حيث تقوم بتصدير المنتجات الخام المواد الخام ونقوم بالتجارة وحجم التجارة مع روسيا تتم بشكل كبير للغاية. لذلك نقوم القيام بالكثير من العمليات التجارية بين روسيا والقارة الأفريقية حيث تستورد روسيا المواد الخام من أفريقيا. أما بالنسبة لتكلفة ذلك الحجم التجاري لا تزال تشكل تحديا لأننا ما زلنا نواجه بعض الأمور خاصة
in terms of ICT, which can also facilitate our competitiveness. But that is not a permanent phenomenon. Within the context of Agenda 2063, we have a number of flagship programs, and all those programs are geared toward addressing those challenges, and we are getting there. We have a number of cross-border infrastructure programs. We have a number of programs and projects which also are geared towards facilitating the competitiveness of our economies. So that being the case, yes, we are implementing. It's a process, it's not an event. We cannot expect that we are going to change the economy, our economies overnight. It is a economic social transformation process which is ongoing. And how does SADC come in? Because SADC is continental agenda is also built on regional integration. And the projects which are implemented, or let me say that the policy is set at continental level, but the implementation is done at national level, but the coordination is done by the regional communities. So SADC is one of the regional community building block of continental integration. And the SADC as SADC, we have front-loaded industrialization. We have a number of projects, again, which are geared toward infrastructure development in energy, infrastructure, transport, ICT, but also we are pushing hard on value chains. And the value chains can only be competitive if the environment facilitates competitive value chains. And we are working very hard with in our economies, with our member states, but also in recognition that we have a continental free trade area. Whatever we do should also be feeding into the continental free trade area. So as we proceed, we are seeing that we are going to transform that scenario of being net importers, but also being exporters to other economies. We see Russia as one of our key partners. There are a number of areas where we can trade, we can work together in terms of energy, in terms of science and technology, in terms of agriculture, in terms of mineral beneficiation. As SADC, we have prioritized 5 value chains, and this is where we welcome Russia partners to come and invest in our economies. We have pharmaceutical, we have mineral beneficiation, agro-processing, capital goods, and services. So all these, I think, are areas which are of mutual benefits to both parties, Russia as well as SADC member state and the other global partners. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, госпожа Такс. Вы в своем выступлении отметили, что, к сожалению, африканские страны до сих пор в основном являются поставщиками на мировой рынок.
The fact that African countries are the main exporter of natural resources across the world. This is why I would like to give the floor to Minister Dimitri Kabirika, the one responsible for natural resources. I think in this field we have mutable problems because we also import resources at a large scale. and natural resources always occupy a great space in the world economy. And when I say resources, I talk about water, forests, and other natural resources. And the same problems are present in Africa. And this is my question, Mr. Minister. Are natural resources a curse? Or is it otherwise a good thing? Is Africa, in relation to natural resources, is it a competitive or is it a partner? And what should we do? How do we get rid of this attachment to natural resources? I would like to welcome all guests in the Economic Russia-Africa Forum. Natural resources, is it a curse or is it a gift, an endowment? It's of course an endowment. For Russia, it has many natural resources, from forests and water, to attract a very large part of our economy. Our different cities and our numerous cities we export numerous natural resources to all countries around the world, and our cities have many natural resources, and definitely we have to be economic in the usage of natural resources, and we have to decrease the amount of exported natural resources, and we have to manufacture it. And to answer your question, that was about whether it's a curse or it's a good thing. The thing that we are very similar with in relation to Africa is that Russia and in Africa, which we have, and in the presence of many presidents in this forum, I'm sure when they talk with their people, they search for new job places and new resources. We are very similar in this respect with Africa. And the second question that is related to, can you repeat the question? Did you mean if we are competitors or we have to be partners? Because we have a very good base, and it has been established in a historical way. And personally, my parents studied geology, and they went to different countries in Africa. And me, myself, have lived in different countries in Africa. And there are many fields of work in these countries. We have to be partners. Even in the areas of searching and excavation in Africa. Okay, we will return to this issue another time. I would like now to give the floor to the executive director of Nasrus company. And before you start to talk, the company of Nasrus is one of the biggest companies in Africa that invest its capital in Russia, and it has many investments in the Russian economy. and it depends in its private investments on digital marketing and technological marketing in Russia. And this company is the second in the world in relation to technological trade. That's why this company is given utmost importance, because it will do what we desire in related to the fourth technological international revolution. I wanted to ask you, what are the projects and the directions in which we can contribute as Russians in Africa? And my second question is, your partnership creates many youth capabilities. We talked a lot about this, and Ms. Mosage asserted that 65% of the residents in Africa are less than 35 years old. And the most important goal for us is to use this resource, this very great developmental resource, because in one respect, it's a very good thing, but from the other side, and in another respect, the employment of the youth in African countries will pave the way for stability for the governments in these countries. I would like you to tell us, where should we begin, and from where and when should we begin?
أمثل نسبس، ومثل ما ذكرت هي أكبر مستثمر في التكنولوجيا الروسية، وقمنا بالاستثمار في روسيا منذ عام 2006 في شركات الآن معروفة بميلاريو وأفيتو، مثل ما تم ذكر ذلك في
Naspers invested more than $2.8 billion in Russia. And our investments in Russia are now worth about $5 billion. Whilst we bring expertise and knowledge, we don't have any expats in our businesses. We empower great Russian talent. That is the essence of what we do, bringing capital and knowledge and empowering local teams and helping to build them into champions, Russian champions of the digital leadership space. It is the best of both worlds. Insights from our international sector combined with the local talent results in us being able to grow our business quite rapidly, and we have been able to do so. What we have found in Russia is that there is significant smartphone penetration, there are excellent software engineers, and we see this as a space for us to be able to significantly continue to invest in Russia. When we look into the future, we continue to see further opportunities for us to invest into Russia, and we look forward to being able to do so. What we are looking forward to is a stable environment in the digital space as we continue to invest here. And as a business, certainly from the experience that we've seen in South Africa, what makes you successful is if you help to address big societal needs.
Уважаемый господин президент Российской Федерации Владимир Владимирович Путин, уважаемый господин
And Putin,
السيد المحترم
the
رئيس جمهورية مصر العربية
respectful
عبد الفتاح السيسي.
Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. We are here to discuss questions, very important questions. And what's left is we would like to give each one 1 minute in order to complete their talk. Mrs. Alama, I requested that you would tell me about the mechanism that we can have between Africa and Russia.
Let me join my colleagues in thanking His Excellency President Vladimir Putin, the President of the Russian Federation, and all the African leaders gathered here for the strong support and vision they've shown to this forum. It's a very important forum, which will help Africa to find new partners because the problems are many, and Africa needs many partners to be able to begin to solve the problems. With regard to financing, with the current levels of trade going on between Russia and Africa at about $20 billion, we think there is adequate financing. Today, the transactions we've done with Russia Export Center and those on the pipeline amount to about $5 billion. We are committed to doing those transactions. The important thing is how to grow the business. Since Afreximbank started engaging with Russia and Russia Export Center, in the past 4 years, trade between Russia and Africa has doubled. With the chairman of the Russia Export Center, Mr. Slepnev, my friend, we've decided that we should push to double it again in the next 3 years. But to do that, we have to do more. And one thing is to deal with the risks. Dealing with the risks is to make sure that information is available. So we've agreed that we'll create trade information portals for Africa and for Russia and link them up so that businesses will know what is going on. We've also agreed that we will look at putting together a big guarantee facility because risk is information. If you don't know anything, it is risky to you. So we, the policy banks, can provide the guarantees to make sure companies...
Господин Арама, извините, пожалуйста.
Thank you.
Спасибо большое. И еще один вопрос к Андрею Костину. Мы говорили о том, что Африка заинтересована не в развитии.
I hope Andrei Kostin can talk about the fact that Africa gives very much importance to investment inside Africa and not in relation to trade dealings with it. We work with many African countries in relation to monetary topics related to Russia. The first question is the Russian bank, and especially VTB, that does all paper dealings between trade dealings between Russia and Africa, and we have reached in this dealing to become very near to African countries. We invest in many projects in different countries in Africa. And we invest in other African countries in the infrastructure, and in particular electric energy and nuclear energy, and fishery, and agriculture, and educational programs, and healthcare programs, There is another point I would like to clarify, which is our bank invests and will invest, will do many investments in order to maintain international cooperation and changing dealings from dollar to local currencies in some countries. And there are some points in relation to the infrastructure. For example, that our policy in Kazakhstan, in other countries that are related to Russia, are joined in the same problems in Africa, and we have great experience in dealing with this. I would like that Mr. Andre would tell us about some information in respect to the cooperation between Russia and Africa. Today we open a new area and field related to €5 million that would allow for trade cooperation between us and African countries. And to those who are concerned, I would like, please ask your questions. And since Mr. President Putin is here today, I give the floor to him. Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, presidents of countries, ladies and gentlemen, close friends, I welcome you warmly on the occasion of opening the Russia-Africa Forum. There has been no equal to this very important event in the history of African-Russian relations, represented by government institutions and experts from every country to discuss the current situation and the horizons of discussing trade and other economic topics. Today, African countries are on their steady way towards social and economic and scientific and technological development, and it plays an important role in international affairs. And we should establish comprehensive cooperation with the African Union. And we did a very big preparation to specifying the directions in the mutual cooperation. African-Russian relations have registered, and it's very friendly and very trusted. It's of its very trusted nature. It registered an improvement in the previous years with African countries on the bilateral level in different forms. And it was possible not only preserving the fruitful cooperation, the accumulating cooperation, but also achieving great and new successes. And this is owing to the fact that Africa have become one of the most promising areas for international economic development. The amount of channeling investments and trade a great level, and mutual projects are underway in the field of industry with the rate of more than $20 million. I think the minister said that this is a good amount. However, I think it's a very small sum. There are very good partners in Africa. This is a very small value of money. We develop mutual projects in relation to excavation, industry, and agriculture. Russia is one of the 10 first importers from Africa. We export more than what we export of arms. We export more agricultural products than arms. And this all reflects and tells us that in the next 5 years we should double this trade dealings between our countries. Russian companies are ready to provide African partners with what it has of scientific and technological achievements. We support the role of economic private committees, and tomorrow many agreements will be held between Russia and African countries. And I insist that through this forum, directions will be specified and fixed about new cooperation forms and propositions of new mutual initiatives, very promising initiatives that will lift the current cooperation between Russia and Africa. There is an institution that we have established through commerce chambers that would help investment in these countries, and there are many companies that work between Russia and Africa. Of course, these plans we will support and expose with companies such as Rosneft and Lukoil and IROS, which is searching for diamond in Africa. And we help with lifting technology in Africa and building more than one plant in Africa to generate energy, especially the project that we are executing in Egypt, in particular the Russian companies that can work in the industrial zone that we are establishing in cooperation with Egypt. Now there are 23 companies, but I'm sure that in the future there will be more and bigger companies. Today we cooperate in the International Food Program. Our country undergoes and plans many countries in Africa. We pay debts of more than $20 million to African countries. Thank you. In some countries, we did many projects on the long term, which involve many investments, especially with respect to healthcare. For example, there is a lab for studying chronic diseases and inhabitant diseases. Our country is one of the first countries that combated the Ebola disease, and we could come up with a treatment that is better than any other treatment around the world. We built more than 100 scientific institutions, and we have many fields in Africa where 17,000 students receives education on the funding of the African country. In this forum, there are many topics and many different topics. I wish that we can create a specific list of the projects that we can establish with our partners, with the Ministry of Economy, the Russian Ministry of Economy. And with this ministry, we opened and treated many issues related to cooperation between Africa and Russia in excavating resources and healthcare development and establishing companies and joint institutions. And I hope in this forum that this forum will contribute to developing economic development with African countries. I wish you all the best of success, and I thank you for honoring us with your presence here in Russia. Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor now to our kind guest, the President of the Republic of Egypt, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. In the name of God, the most merciful and compassionate, Mr. President Vladimir Putin, the President of the Russian Federation, Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, leaders of governments, ladies and gentlemen, I would like first to express my special respect to President Putin and the Russian Federation, the people of the Russian Federation, for their great hospitality and their giving importance to boosting cooperation between Africa and Russia. Through launching this forum, this allows for trade opportunities between our country and other countries to push forward the journey of economic developments according to the vision of 2063, and contributes to opening new horizons in cooperation according to the principle of national ownership and methodology of African partnership that have always proven its positive outcome. The aspirations of our countries should push us forward to achieve their hopes and their legitimate hopes of stability and economic development, and it also makes it necessary for us to learn from previous experiences, and makes us able to be willful and to achieve success, which this also participates in boosting the capabilities of our countries and the priorities of our countries. Our content was keen on putting the infrastructure issues at the priority of the mutual African work, and we decided to invest in the human capital when we've given it due importance, being one of the most important factors in development, and especially that the youth of our country are younger than the age of 25, exceed 5% of its population, which, as well as our efforts to capacitating the women in our country. We are in a stage that witnesses many positive changes and fields of industry is developing according to ambitious plans that aim at achieving the aspirations of our country. And I would like to assert in our gathering today that we have went a long way in our economic reformations and achieved a lot to achieve the economic integration on the regional and continental level, and especially entering the African plan entering into effect in July 2019, which makes the continent a destination for partners in the international development. And in this framework, Africa cooperates with its African partners in relation to delivering expertise and developing infrastructure and setting the rules of digital economy. I also renew my invitation to the international funding institutions and cooperation in Africa. This is the most suitable time for openness to the countries of the continent. I also ask the institutions to provide the financial guarantees to build the capabilities of the continent, to improve the trade and other which achieves for the people in our country to follow the development and progress and sustainable development in the continent. And I assert that the cooperation with African countries should depend on mutual principles that targets developing sustainably through partnerships and improving the environment of businesses and partnership with the private sector, and achieving social justice and social partnership, and boosting stability and the sustainable development goals in 2030. And eventually, I would like to assert my aspiration that Egypt in this forum seeks more cooperation between Africa and the Russian side in all fields. Peace be upon you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. After the address by both presidents, President Putin and President Sisi. There are many mutual problems. We have ideas with many mutual projects, and the most important thing that President Putin and President Sisi has said is that the most important thing in the world is the human being and his aspirations and his decent livelihood. I think that if we unify our efforts between Russia and Africa, this will be a good motive to establish a decent life for human beings. I now give the economy minister, Maxima Lishna, the floor to tell us about what are the projects that he can propose to African countries. Thank you very much. I hope that we all watch the documentary.